It's a lot different than last week. Last week we were, what, 38 degrees, freezing to death, putting winter clothes on. We came back from sunny California, and now it's going to be up in the 80s. It's just life in the mountains. So, of course, you probably noticed we did not do a live stream, was it, last part of last week. Mrs. W and I went down to Los Angeles for VidCon. Now, VidCon is a conference for people that are, I guess, content creators, not only for fans, but as well as for creators themselves that want to go maybe learn what's going on, learn particular skills, how to edit, how to do SEO on the back end, ideas, what's happening in the future. You get to hear a lot from people that are leaders of the industry. So that was really interesting. So how it kind of works out is you have 3 tiers or 3 levels. This takes place at the Anaheim Convention Center. Interesting fact, by the way, there's a lot of people that hate on California. And rightfully so. They are the chief of sinners when it comes to leftist, crazy, lunatic policies. However, Californians, especially as someone that's from an Oregonian, Californians have a very terrible rap. People don't particularly like them. Why? Well, the biggest complaint is that what they do is they flee the sewer that they've made, and then they show up to your state, and then they start imposing the very things that they didn't like. You know, it's kind of the vicious cycle. However, I have grown up with all these anecdotes. I understand it. My grandfather was an Okie. An Okie is someone that was raised in Oklahoma. And now we know the story. The Okies, when the Dust Bowl came during the Depression, the Great Depression, they weren't able to farm their land. And my family was caught in the middle of that, and they all made the westward migration, and many of them went to the agricultural areas of California. Now, in the 20s and 30s, California was really the breadbasket of the country. Just an incredible. California has more than any other state. If you just strip away all the politics and you just look at natural resources, the perfect weather, beauty, amazing coastline, mountains, you know, it has everything. It really does. You could just about, if it was run efficiently, California could probably produce the majority of the world's food. I mean, it wouldn't really surprise me. So, Granddad, who never had a bad thing to say about anyone. I can't even remember. I spent my entire life with him, you know, from the time I was just born up until, you know, up into my 20s or so. I never remember him having a bad word about anyone except for California Man. He was not a fan. He was a man of God. He was very selective on what he said. He knew when you say something, you mean something. And when he talked about Californians, well, he had a very strong opinion. And the reason being is they were treated very badly by the Californians when the Okies migrated. They looked at them as second-class citizens. They didn't like them coming into their state, and I don't know that I would necessarily blame them. Can you imagine having a beautiful state that's up and coming, and all of the hope that comes from that, and you see this influx of these ragtag Midwest folks coming there? What they didn't realize is that those are the best folks you could have in your country. So Granddad was always somewhat sensitive about that, and he always referred to Californians as prune pickers. So I was raised with a bias towards Californians, and then as an Oregonian, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, I have to say, Mrs. W and I have been to California. We go there quite a bit. I think maybe it's because we share a border. It's easy. It's a 2-hour flight. There's just so much to do down there. I have, next to Texas, I don't know that I've ever been treated nicer than people. And it's not just one-off. Yeah, of course, you know, there's the aggression and the driving problems and the politics and all that. But when it just comes down to meeting folks, just face-to-face, whether it be the server at the Mexican restaurant or the concierge at the hotel or just general people that I've met, I found people to be very warm, inviting, and very, very friendly. So shout out to California Man, who I'm going to officially give host status just because of the way that we were treated. So we had a really good time down there. VidCon, if you're wondering, to back up a little bit, is a really, I think it's worth going to for a multiple of various reasons. Now you have 3 tiers for VidCon. As I said, you have an avenue for folks that are fans. There was a lot of fangirls, young people there to meet the creators that they like, for meet and greets. And then on the second tier, the second level, you have kind of the creator track, where if you are an up-and-coming creator, you're just getting started, you can sit in on conferences from anything from how to use AI, how to video edit, to do SEO backend, video ideas, short versus long, strategies. There's a lot to be gleaned from that by your fellow creators who have had success. And I find it to be very encouraging. The third tract, the top tier, is the industry side. So when you go there, and that's what we go in, we're not interested in the fangirls and all that sort of thing. I've been in this and doing it for a long time. I'm more interested in trends, what's going on, and to network and to meet people and just to see what is the projected possibilities and technologies that are going to be available for content creators so that we can produce better content and I can have fun with it. And to be honest with you, I've been doing this for a long time. I've never been able to keep a job, or not that I haven't been able to. I've made the conscious decision not to keep jobs for a long time because I've always gotten bored. 2 or 3 years is a long time for a job for me. Once, I wouldn't say that I mastered it, but once I receive a certain level of competency, then I find I get bored with it and I want to move on and learn something else. So for me to do videos, a particular thing for so long, 12 years or so, is very unusual. And the only way I continue to do that is to be evolving. So I enjoy going to VidCon. Mrs. W and I, we always go together, for the reason being is that you get to meet people that are doing the same thing that you're doing. They may have a completely different topic, something that you're not even interested in, but it doesn't matter because you're still walking the same road. And it's hard, even having friends, sometimes it's nice to be able to commiserate, to be able to share experiences with someone that really knows what it's like. And that's what I enjoy about it. I enjoyed meeting people and creators that are bigger than me, creators that are smaller than me, and having all of that in common. It's very encouraging. And when I come back, I'm always really supercharged. I'm interested to try new things. I'm interested in where the platform is going. And I just enjoy it. I enjoy it very, very much. So shout out to VidCon. We had a good time. We were treated very well. Shout out to California, a California man who was also very kind to us. We had a great time, really had a great time. So it's nice to be back, and I'm excited to definitely get after it. Update, my son Jack, if you're just joining us, most of you know this, he is red carded. He got all through with it. He will be going out. He could go anytime. So he's running into town today to get fitted for his boots. And I have been this morning putting together some stuff for him. I can't help myself. I know I'm trying not to get involved. I understand that this is his personal journey and, he needs to do things, but I can offer some help, some things that can make his job easier, that will give him the ability to do well because of my experience of doing it in the past. And so he is getting ready to go through his Sawyer class, so it's an S212 class, so that will make him officially chainsaw qualified. Now, he's not, when you go through a Sawyer training class, whether it be for private contractors or with the Forest Service or the state, you might think, oh man, I'm set, man. I passed the class, I got my certification, I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna be chucking down snags and cutting down trees on fire and all this cool stuff. Hold on, probably not. Probably not. You have to earn your keep and you have to earn experience, and the fire service is very traditional that way. So I told Jack, I said, just warning you, just because you've got your Sawyer certification doesn't necessarily mean that you're even going to have a saw in your hand, and it's probably unlikely the first year. But what you will be doing is swamping. Swamping is the man or woman that works next to a sawyer and is a personal assistant. So as the sawyer is going in and maybe cutting and clearing brush, maybe you have a road that's really brushy and you need to turn that road into a fire break. It's very common for a division supervisor to give instructions to the saw teams. I want everything cleared 20 feet, 50 feet, whatever it may be, both sides of the road so they can have a really bomber fire break. And that really comes down to the sawyer and the swamper who work a pair. The swamper works with the sawyer in pulling brush away. It's a hard job. Both jobs are very difficult, but it's a good way to start because you get to work around experienced cutters and you can see how it's done, how to safely Ooh. We are not off to an auspicious start this morning. If you heard that, a big boom of lightning, that means lightning strikes, which means bad fire. Lightning strikes or dry lightning storms up here are very dangerous because they strike all over the place in that dry grass up in the forest, and they start fires. They can start fires up to 2 weeks later. So we will definitely be watching that today. Jack could leave at any moment. Or not. You know, once he's qualified, once he's certified, he will be up and running. So we're scrambling around here trying to get things put together for him. So knowing this, and Jack really wants to be a sawyer, I put together this morning a faller's belt for him. And I just did a video on it. It'll be uploading today. So if you want to watch it all in detail with all of the parts and everything, that will be it for you guys today. But I found a couple things I thought before we get started I'd share with you that are really, really cool. There's a small company up in Idaho called Grizzly Peak Enterprises. It is a small family-run business that is up in Pierce, Idaho. Here it is, Grizzly Peak Enterprises. And they make some of my favorite tools in the whole world, very specific to wildland firefighting and logging. And this is the latest. Check this out. You know what this is? This is a file holder. File holder. Now I've seen these done. This has been done, I don't think Grizzly invented these. I believe I've seen these done years ago. It's a piece of copper water pipe that makes a file holder for sharpening your file. Now files are a difficult thing. A rat tail file is a very difficult thing to safely carry on your person when you're working as a sawyer. Back in the day, a lot of guys in the logging industry, of course, they never used handles like we do today. They would just have the file like this. And my granddad, he used to work in the forest. He told me that he worked with a guy that would keep this in his boot. They had an 8-inch or a 10-inch boot, and he would slide this down alongside of his boot. And then when he needed it, he could reach down and grab it, pull it out, file his saw, and that all worked well. Well, why would you keep it in your boot? Well, that's very sharp. Basically a bodkin type, the type of arrowhead that would have been designed to penetrate suits of armor. So I mean, this is the way that they are. You put this in your back pocket, you fall on it, there's a good chance that this will run you through and puncture you. Or how many of you have put something like this in your back pocket and forgot about it and then jumped into your brand new 2024 King Ranch with leather seats and tore a big hole in the back? I'm not the only one that's done that. So it's a real safety issue. It's long, it's sharp, it's lethal, and it's difficult to carry. So yes, you can put it in a pack, that's true, but when you're falling, as a professional logger, you're not wearing a pack. It's hard to carry it on a belt. So this is a great solution that Grizzly is building right here. You can make your own. Obviously, you might even have everything you need in your shop to do this. Looks like a piece of half-inch copper pipe with a cap. Just a copper cap that's sweated on the bottom with a hole drilled in the bottom so it'll drain, and then a 3/4 female half-inch female adapter on the top with the female threads, and then we got bad lightning coming. Pop rivet with a small clip on it. Dangler design. Dangler design is good. He found these really clever file handles that have threads in the top, and check it out. This goes in there. This is so brilliant, so smart. And that thread's in there, and so now and it makes no noise. The file can't even touch the sides, rattling around. Not that it would matter too much. The copper is going to be softer than the file, so that's not going to damage it. But isn't that a nice setup? Right there, very clean and simple. The dangler design is very nice because if you have this on your belt, it is moving around. So it's not hanging on stuff. When you're in the brush, working in the woods, the forest, as we say with the war band, the forest taketh. The forest giveth and the forest taketh. The forest taketh a lot of things away. For me, it's taken a lot of bench-made knives away. So if it's not tied on or hooked on, you're most likely to lose it. Everything, all of those branches are just little green hands that want to rob you of your expensive gear. Well, you can get hung up on stuff, and so having this loose, it just kind of moves with you. And if you were to fall on it, obviously you're going to be protected. So this is a great, great tool. I would really encourage you to either make one or buy one. $18 from Grizzly Peak Enterprises up there in Idaho. You'd be hard-pressed, and that comes with the file handle. You'd be hard-pressed to make that on your own. So I got one of these for Jack. He's not going to need it this year. being a swamper, possibly, but he'll have it if he needs it. He'll have it. So it's been very fun. I'm certainly living vicariously through my son and enjoying that. And I remember back to my first experience and the fact that he gets to do this and he's working with good people and a good company. I'm so proud of him. I'm so thrilled. And he's going through and he's doing it with his best friend. So he's got a buddy to go through there. So very excited for Jack. Here's his belt that I made for him right here. So just a basic setup right there. I found a really cool vintage steel solid bronze belt buckle. This is an old one. I'm guessing probably from the 70s or 80s on eBay. And I installed that on his new belt, Faller's belt. So that's kind of cool right there. So Grizzly Peak Enterprises sheath with a German small axe. Small wedge pack. You know, being a new faller, I didn't think that he needed a big, heavy wedge pack. You know, he's not going to be doing the type, he's nowhere near as experienced as I am, and he's not going to have those needs even on his second and third year, most likely, unless he really gets a lot of training. But just a basic kit that will help him. He can use it to assist his sawyer and to do well. And then I put him up a scratch tool with a zip tie mod, also the dangler design. So there it is. That is and I got a full video on that I'll be putting up today. When I was, oh goodness, this is the wedge pack. Did I show you that? I probably should show you that too. So I use the big wedges, but if you're just professional homeowner grade, you're just a firewood cutter, this setup, this belt would be really good for you. It gives you one-handed access to an axe. You could put your small forest axe in. There's a variety of different sizes. You can get them accordingly. But on the left side, I like to have a couple wedges. And these little guys, you know, for just most dudes that are not professionals, these work really good. You're cutting over small trees, it's always a good idea to get a wedge in there so it doesn't sit back and pinch your saw. Or if you're bucking something particularly difficult, you can use this to keep it from pinching your tools. This is something that needs to be in your kit if you're working with chainsaws and doing bucking or felling. These are kind of hard to keep in your pocket. You know, I don't like to have things in my pocket. It's always dangerous. You're always slipping and tripping and falling when you're working in the woods. So you want to be clean and as smooth as possible and try to mitigate injury. So these fit really great in this excellent designed little wedge pack. Again, Grizzly Peak Enterprises, aluminum, lightweight. These are all handmade, beloved. These are really, really nice and affordable. You know, like that file case is like $18. You know, these are not too far from that. You know, these all have to be made by hand and they're very nice. But look at the design. Got a nice retainer on there. You can keep those in there. They hold very firmly, they don't rattle, and then you have them on demand. Right there, nice and tidy, pull them out. It's a great, great kit. So if you don't have something like that, you might want to consider it, put it together, and wonderful, wonderful tools. While I was ordering Jack stuff, one final thing that I found that I've never used before, but I'm going to put this on my own personal belt, is a little different design of a file holder. Now this one is similar. I mean, it does basically the same thing, but instead of the dangle design out of the copper, and this one's probably half the weight, which also appeals to me. Better get my fire gear ready. This slips right on the belt. So it's going to fit right on your faller's belt. It's going to be a little bit, you know, less jangly. It might be a better fit for some options, for some guys, but really well made. It's got a little detent right there. So it locks in very good, but there you go. There's your file, kept safe. It's going to drain in the bottom, and if you want to have a belt-mounted option that'll fit on a 2-inch belt, then there you go, right there. So shout out to our friends over there in Pierce, Idaho, Grizzly Peak Enterprises. I'm not affiliated with them. I want to support them because they're a good company, and I think when our channel was just getting going, I think that they sent me a free axe scabbard, or they supported us in some way. So I've always had a real fondness in my heart for those good folks over there. Oh man, my favorite time of the season. Where's my phone? Goodness, nothing but, I don't have, did I sit down here without my phone? Stand by. How I possibly got over here without my phone is beyond me. Nothing but the best production. Yeah, these lightning strikes do not bode well. I've got the chat on my phone. That is so crazy. It's probably in my pocket. What did I do with that? Sorry, gentlemen. I'm gonna have to find it. Here it is. Good grief. Good grief. Okay. All right, let's jump into it here. We have a comment from Xbow Gaming, Crossbow Gaming. Is that how I'm supposed to say it? Crossbow Gaming says, "Hey Cody, what is your favorite brand of chisel for doing some small scale timber framing?" Well, if I could only have one, can I get one? Let me go grab it. I think having a visual aid's better. What you want is a 3/4 or 1.5 inch. 1.5 is really the only one you need to start with. I think I have it handy here. I'll grab a few. A timber framing chisel, it needs to be a little bit different than an ordinary chisel in just the scale and size of the thing, right? So is this my 2? I have a 2. Yeah, this is my 1.5 inch right here. So this is the one that I've used pretty much exclusively when I built my first 12 by 16 cabin right here. And what I bought was a Robert Sorby. Now, if you haven't seen a timber framing chisel before, this is basically what they look like. They're quite big. 1.5 inch width is your bread and butter. If you're working with normal size timbers, 6x6s, 8x8s, right in there, corner posts and such, your mortise and tenon, the jointery that's going to work is going to be typically 1.5 inch. 2 inch I have as well. 2 inch is a lot more difficult to work with. The 1.5 inch seems to be the sweet spot, but I think I can't speak high enough for this one. This is made by Robert Sorby. I believe they're made in the UK. There's going to be a lot of good ones out there. I'm not saying that this is the only one. It's just that it's a good price point, and I have pounded and pounded and pounded on this. I built my entire first timber frame cabin traditionally, meaning with very few power tools. I would pre-drill a little bit, but I chiseled all that out, did all the joinery with this one chisel right here, and just wailed on this thing over and over again, thousands and thousands of times. So I would recommend it. When I was looking at them, I didn't want to invest in one of the super custom ones. They were so expensive, and I don't know that I need to. So having a chisel like this, 1.5 inch, a Robert Sorby or equivalent, you could even get a vintage one. Here I believe is one that nope, that's a different chisel. But it's also something you can consider and maybe do, you can make yourself or you can buy these, it's nice to have a sheath for your chisel. If you want to do a timber frame project, you're going to have 2 tools in your hand a lot. You're going to have a mallet, a striking mallet. You're going to pound on this with either hard rubber, urethane rubber, or wood, or hard plastic. Of course, you'd never want to beat on a good chisel with metal. It would destroy it. And that's why you see that there's a metal ring on there to protect that wood from mashing out. This would be a hard wood. I think it's most likely a hickory. But having a sheath that fits on your belt, so you can keep this on your belt. The problem that you do is you're going to spend a lot of time honing and sharpening this to get it just to have a perfect flat edge on it. And in one mistake, and you do like I did, and you sit your chisel down on top of your work, and then you bump it or knock something and it falls on the ground, and then it puts a chip in your prized chisel. It'll absolutely break your heart. It takes hours and hours to file that out. So having a sheath that you can keep on you is good advice. If you don't want to wear a tool on you like that, then what I would recommend you do, wherever you're working, have about a 3 by 3 foot piece of plywood and put that down underneath of you. wherever you're working. Just get in the habit of doing that. And then anything you drop, any edge tools, sharp tools, will not get destroyed and not fall on the gravel. And just a little pro tip that I learned the hard way. Some of these, and if you want to make your own, you can do that as well. One little thing that I've really enjoyed, I have one that has a little spot for a pencil, a carpenter's pencil, and that's really handy. So you've got your chisel and your marking device all in one tool, and that's a pretty good way to go. But I'd recommend the Robert Sorby tools. They're not the most elite, but they're a good utility tool for affordable price. That the quality has been excellent for me. I've not had any complaints at all. Goodness, we have a super chat from Mr. Lenny213 kicking it off. Welcome, Lenny. Lenny writes, I really appreciate your work and advice regarding being ready for the coming struggle. Coming from the East, God bless, and love from Ireland. Yes, we shout out to Ireland as well. Mrs. W and I have been talking about, in the next year or so, taking a vacation to Europe. We haven't been to Europe for a while, and on the, I would say in our top two, maybe our top three, maybe top 2 or 3 is Ireland. There's a good chance that we would love to go over there. But I've never been, very much would like to go. We even talked about maybe going to Sweden. And maybe even we're going to look into maybe even living in Sweden or going over there for an extended stay. Maybe spend a year over there in the north. If we could do a house trade or something. Of course, these are just ideas, but just something that we thought we would do would be perfect. We could take the Sweet Loaf over there, a year in Sweden, and she would have, she'd have the language down. Of course, the kids have access. We're working on getting them dual citizenship. Mrs. W will most likely have dual citizenship as well as our kids, American and Swedish, because her mother was, family lives over there, and she's worked over there when she was younger. So maybe 50-50 that will happen, but I'm kind of keen on it. So maybe more about that in the future, but I would very much like to do that. It'd be a nice little change of scenery. We have a super chat from Campbell 300. Welcome, Campbell. Campbell writes, I was raised by a single mother. Will you be my father figure? Well, we're all here to learn together. As we're fond of saying, iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. And it is the job, it's hard for us men, especially American, well, I think all men, but especially American or Western men. We are certainly treated like second-class citizens. We basically live in a gynocentric world, culture, that is not currently favorably looking upon males and masculinity. But we don't care. We know the truth, and we know that we are the prize, and we know that it's men that keep the country going. That it's men that invent everything and make the world livable and as comfortable as it is today. And without us, all of it the wheels will come off very quickly. We have an obligation. I know a lot of us don't want to contribute. We realize that we wake up and we think, okay, well, this country, this society, these Western women, they don't want us, then fine, we won't participate. And there is a very strong desire to participate when you don't feel like you're being respected. That goes, that's manifesting in many ways. It's manifesting in, like I've talked about, I no longer open doors for women. The last couple times I did it, I was reviled or given a dirty look. I no longer pull over to the side of the road to help a woman changing her flat tire. I'm not helping any of them. If they don't want my help and they want to be strong and independent and do things on their own, and they never tire of telling us that there's no difference between the sexes, then they're fine. They should be completely capable to handle all of their problems on their own. So I don't lift a hand for them anymore outside of my own. My wife is an honorable woman. I show her and treat her with the greatest of respect. I'm very chivalrous. My daughter, my neighbors, friends, trusted women that are in my inner circle, of course, they're treated as good as I can treat them, with respect. Traditional values, because they're traditional women. Now, when it comes to men, and the reason why I'm going on about this, like Campbell, points out, I take a very different view. If I see a man coming up behind me, I'll hold the door for him. You know, no homo here. I'm just saying that I understand the struggle as being a man, and I'm not going to step away from that. I'm going to be there participating. I'm going to put a lot more men than I am with women until we get. If they're going to talk trash about us and treat us badly and tell us how we're no longer necessary and we're obsolete and toxic masculinity, then fine. You do it on your own. You go your way, and we'll go our way. And then we'll wait. It won't take too long for the apology. And then when we experience proper contrition and the proper apologies, then we will then consider maybe going back to some of those traditional values that you are clamoring for. But thank you, Campbell. Mr. Juan Padilla, shout out to you, Juan. Juan has got a comment. Juan writes, hello, I was raised by a single mother and I'm not familiar with tools. Well, none of us were. Don't feel bad about that. No, not one of us came out of the womb knowing about tools and firearms and all these things. We had to be taught. So let's not get uppity and thinking we're better than the guy next to us because we benefited from another man who either took the time or whatever, shared his knowledge and experience that he learned and handed those things down. If a man has not had that opportunity, his single mother was irresponsible, couldn't lock down a man, you know, everything that goes along with that, that is not your fault. You are not inferior. You're not stupid. You're simply ignorant regarding tools and techniques, and that's only because you haven't had someone to show you. So let's start with that. There's no one throwing any shade here. No one is looking down upon you, especially me. I understand that I know things. What I've learned is because men in my family took the time to show me. Men that I worked with took the time to show me. So that's what we're here to do. So let's be patient. Let's be kind. And whenever you have an opportunity for a young man that comes to you or seeks your advice, don't turn him away. Spend some time with him, show him some tools. You know, how many of you guys, like me, when you get into the hard and heavy work of going through your tools and organizing your life and scaling things down, simplifying, you're going to have a lot of excess. How many times have you went out and bought something because you couldn't find it, and now you've got 2 or 3 of these things? You know, beloved, put those things together. One of the most difficult things to do when you're organizing and you're trying to get your life in order is you walk into a chaotic space, a garage, a shop that's just been let go for a long time, stuff stacked all over, boxes of random stuff, is you can get overwhelmed. You don't want to get into the habit of just shifting things around, moving things around, because if you move something from here to deal with it another day, you haven't changed anything. You simply have created another job for yourself to deal with later. What I would recommend you might consider doing is get yourself a big tote or a tub, something of pretty good size, and sit that in a spot in your shop, and all of those things that you just are too expensive or too good to throw away, but you really don't need them, and you don't need them cluttering up and complicating your life. You know, just strip your life down to the bare essentials. Keep the best quality things that you have. Let the other things go. Put them in the box. Maybe you don't know who to give them to. Maybe you're not sure what's going to happen, but put them in the box and start building that stuff so that if and when there's an opportunity where a young man or a young person comes into your life, or your kids come up of age where you can start putting together and hand these things on to them. We have a responsibility. No one's going to care for us, beloved, as men. There are no social programs for you. There are very few halfway houses for you. Women, single mothers, the world is their oyster. Social programs, programs for this, programs for that, shelters. Is there anything for you? There's not. So the government is not going to be there. No one's going to be there for you except for you. And so it seems to me that as men, we're all in the same boat together. The world doesn't care for us. Society doesn't care for us. Most women don't care for us. The only thing that we have is one another. And we need to look out for one another. And that not only is that education, but if you could put together a basic toolkit for a dude, man, how nice would that be? And what a great thing to do. It's very satisfying to be able to give someone something like that. And it's just a lot easier than throwing it away and trying to sell it on eBay and dealing with all that. Juan goes on to say, he's 23, he's not familiar with tools, he was raised by a single mother. He says, I'm looking to buy some tools to use in my truck and around the house. I was wondering if you had any recommendations. Yeah, I do. You know, I've done several videos on this. You can go back to my channel. Basic toolkits break down into two categories. The stuff for home repair, your homeowner stuff, your stuff for doing electrical and painting and tile setting and minor repairs. I've got a lot of things. You should start with a tool belt. Start with a tool belt or an apron, a place to carry your things. You're going to need a good hammer. If you're not framing, get a hammer. Get a small hammer and a big hammer, one with a smooth face, one with a waffle face. 28 ounce and 16 ounce, or 32 if you're a bigger guy. You're going to need a speed square. That'll help you to draw straight lines, do 45s, it'll assist you in cutting, that sort of thing. Couple carpenter's pencils, a good 25-foot tape. I prefer a 25-foot measuring tape over a 30 because they seem to last longer and you rarely need a 30-foot tape. Get a Stanley Fat Max. Get yourself a utility knife. Put that in your belt for cutting and sharpening your pencil. You know, again, I've got videos on this that will go over them, but there really is only, you know, maybe 9, 10 tools that you can fill up in your tool belt that will provide 90% of the things that you'll need for basic stuff. Building fence, doing a repair, you know, tearing up this, you know, putting new deck boards on your deck, whatever. You know, that's where I'd start with, is a basic toolkit. So just search my channel under carpenter tools or tool belt. It'll all come up there. You'll see all that. The second is going to be your carpenter tools, the tools that you're going to have in your shop that you're going to need for repairing and maintaining your equipment. Cars, oil changes, lawnmowers, all that sort of thing. And that'd be a basic mechanic set. And that comes down to, everyone would probably agree with, you're going to start with, you need a place to put them. If you're on a budget, it's good to start with a small tool cart. Go on Facebook Marketplace, get yourself a Blue Point or equivalent, Matco, Mac, something you'll be able to buy it for $100, $150. It'll last you your whole life, but a small tool cart. That's where you want to start, a place to put your tools. And then from there, you're going to buy a set of end wrenches, metric and standard, from about a 1/4 inch up to 7/8 or so. Your metric, you know, from about 6 millimeter up to, you know, 20, 21 in there. So that'd be your first set. And then you're going to buy a set of screwdrivers, Phillips and standard. Then you're going to buy a set of sockets, deep and shallow, in 3/8 drive. And a hammer, a pry bar, you know, and that basically gets you going. But I've also got full videos on putting together a basic toolkit with a cart and all of that as well. So you can get into detail on that. But that's where I would start, is look at it. There's two different sets I need. I need my home stuff for, you know, for repair, and then I need my mechanical stuff, and then start building and acting accordingly. Now, what brand? What would I start out with? Would I recommend you get into Snap-on? No, of course not. Of course not. If you know the type of person that you are, and you would rather wait and buy once, cry once, and buy quality Snap-on tools first, buy a screwdriver set, buy a wrench set, and build this over time like I did. You know, sometimes I show Snap-on tools and people say, oh, it must be nice and this and that, but what they don't understand is I started getting my first Snap-on tools when I was 17. My grandfather was a mechanic. He used Snap-on tools, and some he gave me, started my kit. And then one of my first jobs in high school was at a marina where I was a small outboard engine mechanic. And I started buying my first 1/4 inch drive stuff and sockets and wrenches, and then my Jeep parts business. So this was built up over years and years, a long time, you know, 30 years or so. A lot of the stuff I bought new, a lot of stuff I bought used. So over time, you start building a set. But it doesn't do you any good if you need tools now and you can't, you know, I wouldn't say, well, I'm not going to have any unless I can have Snap-on. No, don't do that. Get what you need. I don't have any problem with Harbor Freight tools. I don't have any problem with the tools you get, your Husky tools or your Cobalt tools you're going to get at the big box store. I would probably recommend those 3 brands because one, they're affordable. There's enough competition between those 3 companies that they're actually putting out pretty good tools, pretty decent tools. There's entry-level beginner mechanics that are using Harbor Freight toolboxes. They're getting better all the time. Their Icon line is not on Snap-on level, but it's pretty nice. Probably up better than Craftsman used to be, or maybe equivalent. But I wouldn't have a problem with that whatsoever. My policy is buy what you can afford, get Harbor Freight if that's what you can get, and then over the years, if you get serious about it or you start finding deficiencies in the Chinese tools, then when you upgrade or you break one, then you can replace them that way. But that's the way I'd look at it. Just look at it as a long haul. Get your basic set. For $1,000, I could take $1,000 and put together a pretty respectable, really respectable mechanics set and home set that would be able to do most stuff that you're going to need. You could probably, you could do it for $500 if you were thrifty about it. We have a super chat from Midwest. Shout out to you, Midwest. Welcome. Who writes, I've been trying for years to get a Honda XR650L. Well, that's on my list too, but couldn't find one because of supply chain issues. Last week I chanced on one and today it sits in my driveway. First time motorcycle owner, let the adventure begin. Man, I am so excited for you. That is, it gives me the fizz just reading that comment. I get it. I've wanted one of those for a long time. I don't need one. I've got other bikes to ride, but I am a little bit envious. A great bike. If I could have only one, to be honest with you, like right now in my current understanding and the environment and what I like to do, if I could only have one motorcycle that would serve me for doing off-road and on-road and just be a general all-around, just a wonderful machine, that's the one right there. The Honda 650L. They've been making them a long time. You can buy one going all the way back to 1992, I believe, or somewhere around there. And they're essentially all the same thing. They haven't changed hardly a bit, just color and some graphics. So anything you can find, you're going to pay almost the same for a good, super clean, used, 2005, 2006, not too much different than you're going to pay for a brand new one. A brand new one is $7,000 right now at Honda. And then the used ones are going to range anywhere from $5,000 up to $7,000, even more if they have accessories on there. But congratulations. Overton has recently purchased, he's recently got a 650L as well. And he's been out of the motorcycle for a while. He rode when he was younger and in the military, and he's kind of getting back into it. And he's kind of turned me on to a really great online riding school. And I forget the name of it, but maybe one of the middlemen or Overton can throw that in the link that might be beneficial to you guys that are kind of getting back on motorcycles, have been away for a while, or you've never been on one and are a little bit intimidated. There's no reason to go out there and put yourself in danger. The education is there. The class that Overton is using, he sent me some videos of what he's working on, and it's really, really cool and really put well together. And it's kind of like, like I used to do Taekwondo when I was younger. And there's the belt system, Taekwondo, karate, what have you. You start with the white belt, and the yellow and the blue and the brown, etc., right? Well, this online school is very similar to that there are benchmarks where you have to be able to learn how to do certain things, maneuver the machine. And once you accomplish these, of course, it's a self-study, so you have to, act accordingly. Then there's levels of progression. And I think that's a really wise way to do it, especially if you're brand new on a motorcycle and no one's shown you how to ride it. It's not you that's typically going to put yourself at risk. There's a lot of dangers on the road. There's a lot of aggression on the road. There's a lot more cars and a lot more traffic than there used to be. Someone that, I had my first road bike when I was 17, rode on the road, I've ridden road bikes my whole life. I know what it was like then. I know what it's like now. It's much worse now. I think it would be time well spent to go through that program or a comparable program, get some basic skills, just so you don't get out there and get hurt, because your family needs you. But shout out to Midwest, man. That's very exciting. That was a great choice. I think you chose the perfect machine for a good all-around, just friendly, capable, wonderful bike. Awesome. Let the adventure begin, indeed. We have a super chat from Budweiser. Shout out to you. Thank you, brother. And Budweiser has another super chat and writes, will you ever make longer videos again? Series builds. I really miss your videos from 2 to 7 years ago. They were the best. Yes, there was a lot of discussion about that last weekend at VidCon. There were a lot of content creators and folks that were somewhat dismayed and angry about the fact that YouTube has essentially forced us to make short form content. Why? TikTok. TikTok is gaining such a massive market share of young people. YouTube had to pivot. This was some time back, and basically what it did is they forced us as creators to make short content. Well, not forced us. No one can force you to do anything, but I can tell you, if you want your channel to grow and you want to be successful, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to reach people. We want to grow something that people enjoy, that is getting bigger and better all the time. You were forced to do short content. It was either do that or die, essentially. Look at Nut and Fancy's channel. He didn't do short content. Is it growing? You know, I'm not picking on him. I'm just pointing out that if you don't adapt and don't follow the algorithm and follow trends, then you're really going to be stuck and become irrelevant. Now, I know this all very clearly now with hindsight, but when it was all taking place, you know, we're just trying to figure it out. And it really tears your guts out to spend a lot of time on long form content only to put it up where it's shadow banned or very few people see it. And so it just takes away the motivation. At VidCon this last weekend, there's a lot of discussion about this, and I have felt this. I have felt the desire in me personally, and I felt it seems like maybe the algorithm is loosening up a little bit, where long form content is starting to get views again, starting to get a little bit traction. I think people are pushing back. I think that, yes, kids and young people, they like that short content, but those of us that are older, like, you know, just like Budweiser is talking here, we enjoy that longer form content. We want to work in our shops, maybe turn the computer on, enjoy it, have it playing in the background, and that's just not something you can do with shorts. Shorts require constant attention, and you get to the point where, well, there's nothing even for me to watch from my channel, for example. So I was kind of testing this or thinking about this a little bit, you know, maybe putting more emphasis, more time on that. And from what I heard and what I learned about what people want, what other creators are doing, what's happening with the algorithm, I'm more and more convinced that it might be time to move back into that a little bit. So I'm going to be doing more of a 50-50 split this week, where I'll be doing shorts. Of course, I enjoy doing shorts. They're very popular. People like them. But I also want to make sure that I don't overlook the long form content in projects. So I did one today. Shot all morning. I shot a long form video, 10, 12 minutes or so, just like the old tutorials of going into detail on Jack's build and philosophy and all that. So I would say, you know, nothing's certain. It's always a moving target with YouTube, but what I'm thinking right now and what is on my mind, top of my mind, is I want to produce more longer videos. So I would expect to see more of that. You know, again, I'm not going to do it if they're burying it. I'm not going to do it if they're not notifying my subscribers when I put them up. I'm just not going to do it. So we'll see. But hopefully that's where the trend is going to go, and I think that it is. There are even some creators that I spoke with, and I sat on some panels that were of the belief that are moving into even doing very long form content, almost like TV type programming, meaning 30 minutes plus, 45 minutes plus, like I used to do. We used to do projects in the wood shop that went over a half hour back in the early days, and those were really popular. People liked them, and I enjoyed them. I enjoyed them especially after work, when you can come in if there's someone that is doing something that you're doing, or you just like to have some company in the shop. It's very enjoyable to turn on a YouTube video, long form content, and have someone that you enjoy watching or that's doing what you're doing, following along. I think that that's great. But I appreciate hearing that feedback, and that only just solidifies kind of what I have already been thinking. But thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Mr. Brian M. Welcome. Good to see Brian back in the chat. Brian writes, the folks are going to be loving their radio packs when they come in come in. I got mine on Friday. So Brian has just received, that's the first report that I've heard back from the 3 Radio Proho kits arriving into you guys' hands. Yes, 100%. I'll tell you, you know, people have been asking about merch and doing different products and such. I field no less than a dozen or so opportunities from companies big and small that want me to get products in front of you guys. I turn them, almost all of them I turn down. And some of them would be a really great fit. And a lot of them are very lucrative. You know, I'm not saying this to brag, but I could just accept one of these things. You know, it's anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000. That's what it's worth for me to shill a product here in front of you. And I'm not even talking about doing a dedicated video, just something, a mid-roll ad or something like that. But I'm not going to do it. I've never done that. Now, I will do ads from time to time. I will always tell you guys what the ads are going to be, but they're also from companies that have products that I use. EcoFlow, DeWalt, those companies in the past. Moving forward in the future, there's been a lot of demand, and we kind of put our toes in the water with 3 Radio Kit, working with Radio Made Easy, our friend Evan over there, putting these together, that I want to do more of this sort of thing. This is going to be more of a labor of love than regular, just a pure profit deal. I'm not really about that. It's more important for me to deliver something to you that you get the fizz. That if I met you, I don't ever want to have to meet someone that comes up to me and says, I bought this on your recommendation and it was trash. I spent my hard-earned money and you told me to get something that wasn't any good. I'm not consciously going to do that. If something is going to be delivered to you, especially if it's our product, our branded stuff, like our 3 Radio Kit and hopefully future products with Evan, it's going to be something that I like and I stand behind 100% and that I'm using currently or actively using. So there's things we're exploring and looking into about what that's going to be, and when those come up, I will be offering them, making them available to you. So I am 100% convinced that you guys that have ordered the 3 Radio Kit, you're going to be super happy with that, because I use mine daily, and I'm super happy with it. Thank you, brother. Man, I'm glad to hear your radios here. Radio Pack. Mr. Overton says, hey, oh, hey, background editions. Oh, hey, background editions looking good. Do I have background edition? Oh, yeah. So Mr. Overton sent me something very, very cool. Very, very cool. I've been really enjoying this. I was going to get with him afterwards and thank him. So, do you guys know what this is? I wasn't sure when I opened it. I believe this is a cartridge from an A10 Warthog. Look at the size of that thing. This is the case with a primer in the back there. And this is the projectile. That's pretty big, huh? Here's the cool part. Here's a cross section of the barrel. See the rifling? Oh, focus. See the rifling in there? That's something else. You know, I've seen, you've all seen those YouTube videos of an A10 and the ferocious cannon mounted on the front of those things and the speed. Can you imagine these big old honkers coming at you at how many thousand feet per second? Goodness, gives me the shivers just thinking about it. That is pretty cool. Yeah, I thought that. Thank you, brother. I got to call you and get the detail, the skinny on where that came from. But that's a very very cool thing. I really appreciate that. And I have also, Mr. Overton sent us the best small micro rig that I have seen so far. And I'll be doing a video on this for you. There's a lot of you want plates, armor plating, rifle plates, and the carrier and all of that, or maybe you're in the process of buying or saving for that. It's a big, that's a big investment. It's a hard thing to get. But a small rig, like a Rhodesian or a small a rig that can carry 3, 4, or 5 magazines, maybe some pistol magazines, maybe a Leatherman, a couple, your phone and such, without all that capability of the plate carrier is very appealing. One, it's going to be a lot more affordable. It's going to be a lot more attainable, and there's a need. It's going to do what you need. And even for those of us who have plates, there seems to be more situations that come up where something like that, a lightweight rig, micro rig without armor, is actually preferable. And you almost get to the point where, well, I'd make the argument that you'd probably need both. But I'll be sharing that with you as well. So Overton sent that, and that is a beautifully made rig. I want to go over that. I want to wear it around and use it a little bit before I speak to it too much. What I find with things that are really well designed and really well thought out, it's the little subtlety, it's the nuance that makes the difference between the high quality and just your regular stuff like your Condor or your 511. That you can only experience when you get in and start using it. When you're crawling around on the ground, little things, or you're trying to, it's more versatile. So I like to play with stuff a little bit before I just jump in and say, oh, this is the most amazing thing. So, but that will be coming up. Thank you, brother. Mr. Jacob Copley, shout out to you. Jacob writes, I run synthetic blend in my 5.0 F-150 with 140K, looking to switch to Amsoil synthetics. Thoughts? Yeah, as you know, I'm a big fan of Amsoil, and by most standards, most guys consider Amsoil to be among the best, the gold standard for lubricants. Wonderful company, high quality products. The nice thing about Amsoil, what my experience has been with Amsoil, I use them on two sides. I use all of my lubricants for the most part. I have a few things left over, but going forward, if Amsoil has it, then that's what I'm going to buy. High quality, fast delivery, good site, and then if you sign up, you can sign up for a preferred customer and you save 25%. And when I order something, sometimes it's here the next day, never more than 2 days away. So yes, I would encourage you to do that. Go set up an account. You can sign up and prefer a customer account. You'll get the savings. You can put all of the fleet of vehicles that you have in the website in your garage. It's easy to use. And then when you want to reorder, you just click there and it'll just list down there very cleanly everything that Amsoil manufactures for your vehicle. And it just helps. So when you're ordering, you can click, oh yeah, oil filter, air filter, bike, whatever. The lubricants, it's very handy. You know, life is busy, it's complicated. There's a lot of stuff that Proho has to keep track of, and that has been a management tool that's helped tremendously for me. Just another thing I don't have to worry about. Put the motorcycles in, Mrs. W's car, Jack's car, put it in the garage, and then when it's time to order, you just simply, everything's there. It's a very good company, but I would encourage you to do that. I love Amsoil. And their cleaning products, and just their general shop maintenance stuff, small lubricants or their version of WD-40, Mudslinger, M&P lubricant is all just top notch. Good packaging. When you get like their aerosol cans, they're not gonna, like sometimes I get WD-40 where it gets down to third left and it runs out of gas and it won't do anymore and you throw it away. It's just, everything about it is really good. I really like that company. 40,000 miles on F-150? Yep, you're just getting warmed up, man. Thank you, brother. Mr. Campbell, 300, writes, thank you for the response. You're welcome. Campbell says, I live in England, and the beating down of men is much worse here. Yeah, I know that. It's nice to see someone telling me being a man is good. Yeah, and just don't worry about society. All of this has been done. There's the old saying is, you're over the target when you're receiving the flak. If you're not over the target, then you're not receiving any pushback. You're not threatening anyone. There's no point of even attacking you. You're just irrelevant. If you find as a man in society that you're constantly under attack, you have to ask yourself why. Well, the adversary, those of us who are people of faith, people of the book, understands that if you really want to destroy society, you need to attack the families. If you can break up the families and get the kids out of the control and good influence of Christian parents and put them in state indoctrination centers, public schools, universities, then you can program them any way you like. You can put these false ideas, these wrong ideas, this leftist lunacy, you can put that into their mind and there's no check against it because the family's been dissolved. And what is the cornerstone of the family? Well, the chief cornerstone of the family is Jesus Christ, the example. But after that, it's the Father. The Father is the priest of the home. God has made us in his very own image. We didn't crawl out of primordial ooze. We have been given the authorship of being heads of our household, priests of our household. God has given that authority. Many of you maybe haven't heard that before, didn't realize that, don't know this. Well, this is a tenet of Christendom, and this is what's under attack. So take solace, I guess, in realizing that the fact that you are under attack, that there is a reason for that, and that is because of the power that we have. We have been made in the image of God. Do you know, beloved, that we have, how many cells do they tell us that they have in the body, in our body? And each one of these cells has a certain voltage. And there's millions, billions, or trillions of them, whatever, I don't know. Can you imagine, and we know about voltage, if you wire something in series or parallel, I always forget what it is, but it doubles the voltage. If you take two 12-volt batteries and wire them a certain way, you can get 24 volts. So if you take cells that all have, 2, 3, 4 volts, whatever it is, and those are all combined, if that power could be harnessed and utilized and focused and controlled, can you imagine the power that a human being would have with the Spirit of God within them? God tells us when Jesus was doing all these incredible miracles, when he was 3.5 years into his ministry, people looked on and they marveled. The disciples marveled. He was walking on water. He was raising the dead. He was healing lepers. He was all manner of things, that we've read about. He says, oh, you think this is amazing? He goes, I tell you the truth. You will do greater things than me. Meaning pointing to that the men and women in the end time, those who remain faithful to Jesus Christ, have a special work in the end time. And there's a power within us, a God-given power within us that it's been hidden from us. Now, was that God's idea to hide it from us, to make that available to us, to be revealed in future times? It's possibly. But there also seems to be, the adversary is working very hard to confuse us, to take that right, that what's the word I'm looking for, that inheritance, that promise, the potential power that God has given us to make us believe that we're powerless, that we're insignificant, that we're not special, we're not created in the image of God, we crawled out of a swamp. That's not true, beloved. That's not true. Every one of us has that ability. The only thing that we need to do is remain faithful, to trust God and remain faithful. When one of the early members came to Paul and says, what must I do to be saved? He came to the head elder or the most prominent man of the early church, came to him and said, what must I do to be saved? Now, today, if you went to a pastor, he would say, well, you need to take these classes, and then you need to sit down with me and spend some time, and then you've got to go to church for a certain amount of time, and then if you follow all this stuff, then maybe you could get baptized, and then you can agree to all of the 20 tenets of the particular church that you're getting involved in, and then and only then will you maybe be fit or qualified to be called a child of God. Now, is that biblical? Do we need to go through and jump through all these hoops? I would say we do not. What was the instruction of Paul? When the unsaved man, when the unwashed man came to Paul, the leader of the church at the time, the man who has written over half of the New Testament, and said, what must I do to be saved? What did Paul say? You need to believe on the Lord Jesus Christ. That was what he said. He didn't say classes. He didn't say going to church. He didn't say any of these things. He said what? He said, you need to believe on the Lord Jesus Christ. Simple, right? It starts right there. The good book tells us that true wisdom, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of all wisdom, of true wisdom. What does that mean? So I have to be afraid of God. Well, many of us already are afraid of God. If we were raised in a hell and fire and brimstone type of Christian organization that beat that into us and used that to control the people, a fear-based religion, then you may look at God that way. But once you grow up and you start to read yourself and you start to see how God interacts with people, what he's done in the past, how he has struggled to save humanity, you come away with a very different impression, your own impression, and that's the right impression, that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. What must I do to be saved? Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ. That's where it starts. When you come to God in humbleness, not in pride or haughty spirit or arrogance or with dogmas or a pre-built religion, you come to him with contrition in your heart. You look back on your life. You take a hard look in the mirror and you ask yourself, if you were honest with yourself, if you weren't just blowing smoke, and you realize, yeah, to be honest with you, I'm not particularly proud of the man that I am. I'm not proud of what I have done and said to people that supported me, family. I haven't always been the best husband. I put my hobbies and my own personal wants ahead of the needs of my children, etc. We've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. None of us be up here on a high horse lecturing to any one of us. We're all in the same boat, beloved. We're all lost sinners, and we all have one hope, and that hope is that the pure life that Jesus Christ led, he's given it to you as a free gift, but you have to accept it. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. True wisdom and understanding and true salvation, salvation comes from coming to God with a contrite heart, putting away all the things you think you know and to be teachable. Get down on your knees in your closet. Ask God for forgiveness for what you know you've done. Ask him to bring into your mind the things that you've done that have offended him, that have hurt people that you weren't even aware of, so that you can repent for that also. And come there with the attitude, I'm not sure about this. I'm not even sure what to do, but I'm tired of living this way. I'm tired of living with sin and regret and fear and anxiety. I want to have this peace that defies all understanding. I want to walk with you. I want to be with you in the kingdom. I don't belong in this sinful world. This is a wretched place. God will in no way reject you. I don't care what you've done. I don't care what your past is. If you come with a teachable spirit, a willingness to learn, and a contrite and contrition in your heart, that's where you start. And right there, you will be closer to God than so many people that have been a lifetime in the faith. I'll tell you, it's as simple as that. So don't be discouraged by what society has told you, and especially run down your masculinity or you're toxic or whatever. God has a plan for you, but he's not going to bend your ear. He's not going to twist your arm and force you to do it. You've got to come to him and you've got to partner with him. Free will is the thing that God respects the most. And he wants you to serve him because you want to, not because you're doing it out of fear or obligation or think that you're going to earn merit. You're not earning any merit. He says that your righteousness, my righteousness, is as a filthy rag. And what is a filthy rag in the Old Testament? It's a menstrual rag. Just to put a fine point on how filthy and unclean that we are, even when we think that we're righteous and holy. Compared to true holiness and righteousness, we can't even coexist. If God were to show up here today in our sinful state, his very existence and the glory and majesty of his purity would destroy us, because light and dark can't live together. Unless we're wrapped in that robe of righteousness, that pure, clean life that Jesus provided for us, then we can in no way even coexist with God until we're transformed in the last day. But until that transformation comes, he's given us an advocate. He's given us a Savior, that we can claim what he's done, not of our own account, but of his account. The dark side, 66. He says, are we going to bring back the Bible study videos? Well, have they ever left? We mix them in. I've had people ask me to separate in the past. Hey, we like this, we don't like it. Can you do a separate channel? I like the other stuff, the tool stuff, but I don't like this stuff. It can't be separated. It's intertwined. I wouldn't be here to share these with you. I wouldn't have a YouTube channel if it wasn't for that. And I'm not going to be the person that's going to be ashamed of the gospel. I've always professed it. I've always boldly proclaimed my faith and my belief, regardless of the consequences. And I paid consequences for it. But what can be compared to that? There's no worldly honor or glory that could take the place of the blessed assurance that comes from knowing the Savior and being safe in the bosom of God. So are they coming? Have they left? Probably. I would say so. We've talked about, there's been some interest in maybe Fridays or having one day on the live stream where we have a particular topic. And I'm thinking about that. I'm sleeping on it, thinking on it, and we'll see. I was hoping someone else would step up and do it, that I could participate in it, but it appears that we're going to have to, if we want the work to move forward, many of us are going to have to pick up and put that mantle on ourselves, regardless of if we want to or not. And of course, many of the great prophets that did great things in the Bible were very reluctant. Actually, the best ones were reluctant. So that's the way that God works. He takes the least. He doesn't take the greatest man. He often takes the least qualified, the weakest, the worst speaker, someone that's not intellectual, someone like myself that doesn't have an education, and uses them so that he's glorified. So that I would never be able to, if I were to bring people to Christ, I would never be able to rest upon my own particular skill set or gifts, because I know who I am in my condition, and I would have to give the glory to God. That's the way he works. He will do great things, at least so that everyone knows that it's not by the hand of man that this was done, but by the hand of God. So don't be surprised, beloved, if you didn't graduate high school, you don't fit the role, you didn't go to seminary, you're covered with tattoos, you've got a past. Don't be surprised if you are the very one that God plucks out of the sewer and makes an instrument for the bringing in of his kingdom. Don't be surprised. And also, keep your eyes open for it. Don't miss that opportunity. You can be tapped for a great work, but because of your fear or your doubt or your lack of faith, you can miss that opportunity. And that would be a terrible thing. Thank you, the dark side. We have a member message from Corey Gardner. Shout out to you, Corey. Corey writes, I follow the pinned link in some of the comments from shorts to those I like. Maybe you could link your long content from shorts and beat the algorithm. Yeah, maybe. I'm always trying stuff like that. I hadn't really considered that, but that's something we could look into. There's no beating the algorithm. It's just working in tandem with it. I'm not trying to fool anything or be disingenuous. It's just you give it what it wants, right? If you can tweak something a little bit one way or another and get more views or get it out in front of more people, then that's always the goal. But it's always moving and changing. So the moment you get it figured out, then it changes, and then you have to kind of go back to it. But that's the way it is. It's no different with any other industry. If you're innovating, if you're into computers or working with AI, many of you are not going to have the jobs that you have today because AI is going to make them irrelevant. Now is the time to be very flexible. You need to take a hard look at what it is you're doing, how it's going to be affected by technological changes, and how you can get yourself in a position where you can take advantage of that. Rather than being destroyed by that tidal wave, you want to be on top of it on a surfboard riding that wave. And that's going to be the difference between those who do great things and those who ended up in decline, really. You're going to have to be flexible. It's not easy to do when you're older either. It may be fun and exciting if you're 20-something. If you're 40 or 50 or 60, you don't relish that. You don't cherish the idea of getting back and having to put the hard work in to learn a new technology or to learn a new trade or learn how to implement some complicated AI interface with what it is that you do. I'm in that position as well, but that's going to be the difference between the haves and have-nots in the future. We have a super chat, a member message from, thank you, Corey, from Thomas W. Hertzler. Shout out to you, Thomas. Welcome. Thomas writes, what are the light squares above your workbench? Thinking about doing a similar thing for my work. Also, Robert Kennedy Jr., what are your thoughts? The lights are just simply a, I don't know. My dad bought them for Jack. They're just, they're a Bluetooth LED light that moves according to sound or different colors. They're just random. They're little tiles that you can stick together and mix and match and do things. And I don't know if I like them or not. People keep telling me that they look like Mr. Mean Mustache's insignia back in the day. I'm sure you they are not. Certainly. But actually, you know, that shape, he did not invent that. You know, that goes back to Eastern religions had that. He simply took it and turned it a little bit. So it's an old shape. It's, you know, I don't know. I didn't even notice that until people brought it up. What's my opinion on Robert Kennedy Jr.? What are your thoughts? You know, to be honest with you, this last week I have not watched any news and really got into what I was doing down in California with VidCon. Also, Mrs. W and I had a wonderful time together. It was one of the few times we had 4 days, you know, without kids and just really enjoyed one another and talking and hanging out, and I just couldn't care less. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I heard all the controversy and canceled this and people talking about this. It's the latest thing. What it's about, I have no idea, nor do I care. I'm so uninterested or disinterested in American politics. And I don't care, these neocons, whatever, it's all, they're so irrelevant at this point, and what they're doing is so detached and so removed from my real life, and I don't trust them. I think that they're liars, for the most part, not all, majority of them, self-serving. How is it that a U.S. Senator can move in, become elected, have a net value of $30,000, $40,000, and then at the end of a couple terms be worth $10, $20, $30 million. How is that? Is the pay that good? How is that? And that seems to be the case. And how is it so many U.S. senators and congressmen have dual citizenships? That's always interesting as well. If you know, the good book tells us that a man cannot serve two masters. God tells us you can't serve, he says the root of all evil is the love of money. Now, not money. A lot of Christians who don't have money, they like to point the finger at people that do have money and say, look, the root of all evil, you're an evil person because you have money. God never said that. He said the root of all evil is the love of money. Many of the patriarchs in the old days were of the wealthiest men of their time. There are many good people that have millions and billions that are very philanthropic, that give a lot, that haven't changed that much, that can handle it. But then there are people that go off the rails and lose their salvation and lose themselves in the love or the pursuit of money. That's what God's talking about. But in speaking of this, he expands. He says, you know, a man cannot serve two masters. You can't serve God and mammon. You can't serve God and money. If the making of money and the acquisition of money is your primary focus, you cannot have that and God at the same time, because you'll either love one and hate the other, or hate one and love the other. You can only serve one master. How can someone with dual citizenship, who is supposed to be making policy for Americans, where is their loyalty? If you're loyal to another country, then where is your loyalty there, or is it to America? And what happens when there's a conflict of the two nations? Then where does the loyalty go? Just saying. We have a super chat from Mr. Kent Aldridge. Shout out to you, Kent, and new member, welcome. Kent writes, I claim my new life as an apostolic Pentecostal. I love your conviction. God brought me back from a life on addiction. What are your thoughts on the firmament? Flat or round? Is the government lying? The government is certainly lying, without a question. If you wonder that, just go watch all of the footage from the alleged International Space Station, where they are obviously not working in zero gravity. Now, the skeptic might say, well, you know, they're shooting the footage because in a replica because it's just easier and all that. But they're lying to us. We're paying for this, and they're lying to us. You know, everything is a lie from them, regardless of what happens, whether it be a submarine sinking, whether it be a train derailment, whatever the press release is, whatever the narrative is for these things, contrails, the flat Earth, whatever they're telling you, you have to just assume, beloved, in this time and day, you have to assume that they're lying to you. Everything is about protecting the government. The government doesn't care about you. The government, right or wrong, has become such a monolith that it basically has circled the wagons, and it's us against them. And the more you complain about what they're doing, and the more you push back, and the more weapons you buy, the more that divide is going to be created. Where you gets to the point, like we have in the book, was it Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead or Atlas Shrugged? I think it was Atlas Shrugged, where the government ultimately turns on its own people and sees them as its true enemy. And that's where we're at today. They don't see you as the people that they're working for. They see you as a threat to their existence, and they act accordingly. The same way with law enforcement. Law enforcement doesn't see you as a fellow neighbor. It sees you as the adversary. It sees you as the enemy. It sees you as someone that is not on the inside, that is not part of them. Someone that they should be suspicious of, that they should automatically assume the worst. Now, whose side are they on? Well, they're on the government side. They are the enforcement arm of the crooked politician. The politician would not have any power if he didn't have the military and didn't have, especially the law enforcement. That's where it affects us. They are their attack dogs. So when you're out there backing the blue and supporting all of that and all those old neocon talking points, you are essentially supporting your oppressor. Taxes are theft, and the police are not your friends. The police are your enemy. We have a super chat from Lenny. Shout out to you, Lenny. Lenny writes, would you advise a semi-auto 5-round shotgun or a .22 long rifle handgun to protect my family and property? Would love your thoughts on this. God bless. So what Lenny is asking, he's asking for advice for a personal, what would be the best firearm to protect a home. The two choices that he's giving us here is a .22 long rifle pistol or a semi-auto 5-round shotgun. Well, neither would be a good choice, to be honest with you. If we're talking about just a pure home defender, you know, it depends on so many things. Is this something a woman is going to be using? Your wife, your daughter, in need? And you might say, well, no, but there are many situations that young people, children have defended their families and homes with firearms because their parents taught them how to use it. How old are they? How big are they? What size are you? You know, is it reasonable for, let's say you have a 110-pound wife, or your daughter is 14, 15, 90, 100 pounds. Is it reasonable for her to be able to manage and to deal with a 12-gauge shotgun? Can she? You know, the answer might be no. Because obviously the choice between the two, if I had to make a choice, I would, of course, prefer the shotgun. But that's a man's gun. A 12-gauge shotgun is no joke. Even with an automatic, you know, the recoil is going to be significantly less than like an 870 or a side-by-side, but it's not insignificant. You've got to man up to shoot those things, no doubt. Long barrels, difficult to manage, clearing rooms, kind of unwieldy in the house, you know. I know the argument could be made. I mean, if someone was coming in, I would grab one. I have one, you know, within reach for sure, but it's not my primary. 22, on the other hand, more people are killed with 22s than any other caliber, so they are effective. However, it's not ideal. If you get someone that is motivated, you can put multiple rounds into them and they'll still come at you and get you. Very little stopping power. And if anybody's wearing even thick clothing, wintertime, backpacks, can be enough of a deterrent to prevent it from being lethal. So given that choice, that's not ideal. Now, would it be better to have that than nothing? Well, of course, 100%. But given those two choices and not knowing your circumstances and who's going to be using it, etc., I would have to go with the shotgun. with the shotgun. The shotgun is very versatile. Both of them are very versatile, but the shotgun's more versatile. In a pinch, in a bind, the shotgun can be pushed into many different roles. Great home defender, double up buck. It's not going to have over penetration. It's not going to require tremendous aim, but you can also load that with slugs. If you needed to do deer hunting and you live in an area where the range is not going to be too far, it can be loaded with bird shot for small game, upland birds, etc., non-lethal, a lot of different options for that, door breaching. It's a very versatile piece of equipment. However, it takes specific training. It's very hungry. Ammunition is large, difficult to, slow to reload without practice. It's not a silver bullet by any means. I think as a rule for a home defender, I would have to side with Clint Smith's philosophy, and the AR-15 is by far the best choice for all around. But the shotgun would be my choice. Good question, Lenny. Let us know what you come up with. And we have a super chat from I am a Toadile 15. Thank you. Thank you very much. I sure do appreciate that. All right, beloved. Well, if that's it, I am going to shut it down. I see that Jack just pulled in, and he probably has his brand new boots. So I'm excited to go see that. Go see that. I think he went in. I was gonna have. We talked about having some custom boots built by our friends over at JK, or even maybe our friends over at Nick's, and the lead time was so long. Jack kind of made the decision to do this not very long ago. There's not enough time for him to get custom-made boots. He's got normal feet, so he can wear off the rack, unlike me. So I sent him in. He said, what boot should I get? And I said, you should get White's smoke jumpers, because I know a good shop he can be trusted to fit him properly. So I think he's got them. So I'm excited to see what he ended up with. And we're going to today start putting together his red bag. So he's going to have to put together a bag for 21-day deployments, provide all of his PPE, greens and yellows, hard hat, safety goggles, headlamp, all that line gear, that sort of thing. But all his other stuff, the bulk of it, is going to be something he has to provide, tents. So he's got to have everything that he needs to survive in any environment for 21 days. So this is something I've got a lot of experience with, and a lot of the stuff that I had from back in the day, I'll be able to give to him. I've got the 14 pair of wool socks. I've got the 14 t-shirts, all that stuff. So, and he's about my size now, so he can wear it. I asked him about packs, because I've got a good Mystery Ranch pack. I asked him, are they giving you packs, and what pack are they giving you? He said he wasn't really sure. Sometimes if you're using issued packs, they're not very comfortable. They're not very well designed. I don't know about this particular company, but that's usually the case because it's a big expense to equip a 20-person hand crew with Mystery Ranch, and not everybody's willing to do it. So I said, well, you can ask him because it's very important. Boots in the backpack, your fire packer, are two of the most important pieces of equipment that you're going to have. Out for 21 days, long days, you need to have things that work with you. It's very important. I said, well, ask your squad boss if you can wear your own pack. And he said, yeah, no problem. He goes, actually, I got the same pack. He goes, if you have one you want to use, it's better, then you can use that. So I'm going to give him my stuff, and he can go through and put it together, how he sees fit, what works for him. And at least I'll send him out of here with a good pair of boots and a good pack. And we have a super chat from Mr. Rick Gates. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. Shout out to you, Rick. I sure appreciate your generosity. Rick's been with us for 3 years now. 3-year member. Goodness. All right. Well, thank you, beloved. May God bless you and your families. Keep us in your prayers. Make sure you pray for Jack that he stays safe. We got a lot of good projects ramping up here. A lot of things going on this summer. I am running around here like busier than a one-armed paper hanger, but I like it that way. Keeps me on the straight and narrow. So keep us in your prayers. Lord willing, we'll see you all tomorrow. And I've got some fun videos for you. I'll get that long form content up. Should be posting right away. So jump on over there, subscribe, like, hit the bell. You get the notification, and let me know what you guys want to see. And if I could make that happen, we certainly will. Thank you, beloved. We'll see you all on tomorrow's video.